Hey everyone, welcome to the Kill It Off Screen podcast. My name is Joe, and I'm joined by my friend, co-host, and zombie rights advocate, Prentice.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast with the best horror news and reviews. Today we're going to talk about Dawn of the Dead 2004. But first, Joe, you've got some news for us.
Yeah, I saw one thing, and, well, firstly, I want to say that we haven't mentioned at all everything with Spyglass and Scream 7, the movie that probably will not be coming out anymore, because I think even by the time episode 1 came out, it was something that had been widely reported on, and it was just kind of a endless cacophony of Spyglass has made this now former actor mad, Spyglass has now made this actor mad, and so it didn't feel like much to really report on, any kind of like new developments or anything. It was just, yeah, Spyglass are just burning bridges with every person that they needed for their Scream franchise, and it's kind of hilarious to me in a way.
For sure. We missed it by about a week, and none of the updates were really worth jumping into since that kind of first snowball of awful decision making. And it's just a whole can of worms that, frankly, we're probably not suited to talk about kind of the background information on a goofy horror podcast, so we held off.
Yeah, all I know is we stan Melissa Barrera and her takes, and all of the other
100%.
actors for kind of siding with her. So there you go. That's our stance. That's how we feel about that. But another thing I saw was supposedly Stephen King might be doing a horror thriller kind of movie in the vein of something like Rosemary's Baby. I never get too excited whenever I see a release like this, because I remember a while back I saw something that was like Quentin Tarantino for next and final movie is going to do a horror movie. And I feel like every couple years a story like this pops up and it's some big all-time great director rumored to do a horror movie, and then it just never materializes. But I mean, hopefully. Also, I just realized it's Stephen King. I mean, Steven Spielberg. Spielberg.
Okay, I was like, Stephen
makes a
King
lot more
doing
sense
horror is
now.
not a huge departure for him. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of in his entire career, huh? Yeah, Steven Spielberg, I meant to say.
Well, Spielberg did he did Jurassic Park, right? Was that him?
Yes,
that's
I
got
believe
some
so.
horror elements to it. I think I could see Steven Spielberg knocking it out of the park with kind of maybe a poltergeisty edge of PG-13 horror movie. I could see that being fun.
I mean, yeah, he also did a little indie one called Jaws that, you know, we might be aware of. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's
Well-
not terribly uncommon.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see that happening. I'd see that happening before I'd see like Tarantino doing it. Speaking of directors turned producers turned back to directors, we did learn what the new Jordan Peele movie is. It's not going to be a horror movie. I just remember this when you mentioned someone hopping on board these movies, but Jordan Peele is going to produce a Dev Patel joint. I don't know if you saw this, but Dev Patel is going to make his directorial debut, and I think he's also going to star in it. It's called Monkey Man. It's about oh gosh, I should pull this up so I don't misquote it, but I believe it's about a hitman in like West Asia. Comes out of prison. And apparently it's going to be about going up against corporate greed and eroding spiritual values. It's a revenge thriller. I saw someone describe it as like West Asian John Wick, which sounds pretty dope to me.
Yeah, if it's an action thriller and it's getting any kind of comparison to John Wick, I mean, I'm pretty up for it. The plot that you're describing almost sounds similar to The Beekeeper, that new Jason Statham movie. I haven't seen it yet, but that's kind of the first thought I have. But yeah, I mean, when you're watching an action movie, it's not necessarily plot. It's just really about the set pieces, like how good is the action choreography and everything. So it's kind of like a comedy. You're not really there for necessarily the plot most of the time. It's just, okay, a comedy movie, does it make you laugh? Action movie, is the action really good? And then that's all you really care about. If you get that, then you got your money's worth.
100%. And it looks exciting.
That's awesome. Another thing that might be awesome, hopefully, maybe, is A24 is doing a Backrooms movie. This got announced recently. Not much beyond that, but it seems very weird for A24. Like, their typical kind of artsy productions. Like, this feels almost more like it'd be a Blumhouse announcement,
Yeah,
you know? Not really A24.
That yeah, you say that I immediately was like, did Joe misspeak? Did he mean Blumhouse? You know what? I kind of love this though. I think there's a lot to do with I think like kind of open market kind of all 24/7 fair use internet horror just doesn't get utilized well enough. Like I think with things like SCP, which is a like a collection of of creepy pastas on the
Yeah.
internet, and that's selling it super short. There's like 1,000 stories for SCP, but stuff like Backrooms, stuff like I mean I think they did pretty solid with Five Nights at Freddy's, and that's something that has like way more lore you have to be respectful of than something like the Backrooms. So I could see this being really kind of fun and interesting, and letting A24 kind of do their own take on the concept of the Backrooms.
Yeah, I saw the announcement. I didn't see if they have a director or anybody slated for the movie, or if it's just, okay, this is the next property we're going to be adapting. I'm not sure if they got the kid who made the short, or. I mean, I imagine they would have had to at least contact him. I don't know if it's like an actual rights issue because it was like a YouTube video, but I mean, I doubt they just were like, oh, hey, thanks, kid. We're just going to steal this and make millions off you. But yeah, I remember watching that original short after it blew up and got memed to hell and thinking like, oh yeah, this kid who I think was like 16 or something at the time, thinking, oh yeah, this kid actually has like some directorial talent. Like I could see this kid actually growing up and making like real horror movies, and it would be cool if he was the one directing this. I'm not entirely sure because I imagine he's still like very young. I don't think the Backrooms is
Yeah.
very old. I don't think it's one of those things that was like uploaded in 2010 and only got big now, and now the guy who made it's like 30. I think it's only a couple years old, so I think the kid is still like a kid, but
Yeah.
I
It
don't know. I mean,
originated in 2019.
yeah, so still pretty
And
young.
it started as a 4chan thread. So be careful, A24. Just because everything that comes out of 4chan is at least a little bit poisoned.
Yeah,
A little bit cursed.
just a
So
little.
just be a little careful.
Yeah, but we'll anticipate that. And then there's 28 Years Later, the next sequel for 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. We have Danny Boyle and Alex Garland coming back for their same duties, where Garland apparently has had this script for like a long time, I believe, unless I misread that. And then Boyle coming back to direct. Supposedly, Cillian Murphy has been like long since on board to come back and be Jim again. I will be honest, I'm not
Hell yeah.
anywhere near as interested if they don't get Naomi Harris back. Like we all talk about Cillian Murphy, and I love Jim as a character, but for me in that movie, it's always Naomi Harris as a standout. I think she's really incredible in that. I always love like anytime she's like yelling and raising her voice. Like she just really sells fear so well in her voice. You know what I mean? When you watch 28 Days Later, and yeah, I thought she was great in that, and I would really love if they can get Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris back for it.
100%. I think for me, the only person that 100% had to be on board for 28 years later was Alex Garland. I'm a huge fan of Alex Garland. I love all his movies. I think Sunshine's incredible. Dread is one of my favorite action movies of the last 25, 30 years. Just a nonstop banger. I love Annihilation. I think that's some of the best cosmic horror that's been done. And I think if he wasn't involved, I'd be more worried. I think if Danny Boyle wasn't involved, I'd be worried as well. I'm happy that Cillian Murphy's coming back. I also hope that Naomi Harris comes back. But for me, it's like I'm happy that Cillian Murphy, like, clearly he wants to be in this series. Like he
Right.
must love these movies because he just came off of like clearly he's going for an Oscar with Oppenheimer. He's coming off a string of like really successful performances, like really iconic performances too. He playing Oppenheimer, playing Shelby, but Patrick Shelby, I think his name is, in Peaky Blinders for like 8 years. He became like super well known for that. It feels like
Yeah.
he could get any role that he kind of really wanted right now, and for him to be like, I want to go back to 28 days and remake this sequel 28 years later, like that's some commitment to the part that I love to see from him.
Yeah, when you think about the perspective of an actor, some of them are just really passionate about a character that they played, and maybe they feel like they've just never gotten an opportunity to revisit it. I know one that stands out is Kevin Bacon, actually with Val and Tremors. Even though the movie bombed, and so he of course didn't come back for any more in the franchise, I saw a clip that was like, yeah, I wish I could have ever, like if there's one character I would have wanted to take another stab at, it's Val from Tremors. But maybe it's a similar situation with Cillian Murphy. Maybe he just really liked working with Danny Boyle. I don't know, but yeah, really hoping that we get it. I'm hoping it's one of those that doesn't get trapped in development hell and one of those where we hear about it and everything looks like it's been greenlit and then it falls apart. So fingers crossed. And then lastly, we have Abigail, the new Radio Silence movie. I think that's our next big release that's slated to come out this year. We're kind of hopefully getting out of the doldrum that we always have for horror at the beginning of a year. And so, yeah, Radio Silence made Scream 6 and Scream 7, as well as Ready or Not. And those are their big movies. They've done like anthology stuff and some other movies like the first VHS, but of course, those are the really big ones. I'm lukewarm on them. You know, I like Scream 5 quite a bit. I did not really care much for Scream 6. Ready or Not's really fun. Abigail looks like it's trying to do that kind of horror comedy type of tone. Again, they really like that kind of more self-referential, not very serious, kind of irreverent horror. I saw some trailers and, you know, it's only a trailer. You can only judge so much from it. I'm not super hyped for it, but hopefully good.
I think the cast for this looks really good. I really like Dan Stevens. I think he was in Legion, if he's the same guy that I'm thinking of. And if he is the guy who was in Legion, he's really great. I loved him in Legion. And Giancarlo Esposito is going to be in it. Great.
Yes.
Melissa Barrera and Catherine Newton are going to both be in it. Up and coming Scream Queens. The pair of them for me. And I think the concept of this seems really fun. Like little kid Dracula. That's always fun. I love the idea of child vampires. I think Let Me In and Let the Right One In, respectively, both do very interesting takes on the same story with a child vampire. And I think things like Interview with a Vampire, I believe, had a young Kirsten Dunst as a vampire, and that was super interesting take on it. So I think as long as they're like not just parroting one of those ideas, as long as they're doing something kind of fun and interesting with it, I'm excited and I'll go see it. But yeah, there's not a ton for me to go off. The cast looks good and the idea should be fun.
Yeah, that seems to be the tone they really go with. You know, they want fun, comical kind of horror. So we'll see whenever that comes out. And I guess we can go ahead and get into our review of Dawn of the Dead 2004. And actually, before we do, I have two realizations from the last episode. The first one is that the entire time we were talking about the Borderlands or Final Prayer with the character Mark, we never once made a "Oh Hi Mark," the Room reference. Really a missed opportunity.
Oh hi Mark. Truly, I don't know how I didn't. I think that movie's just too, especially with the ending of that movie, it's just too dour to think about the Room.
Yeah, you don't really see the Borderlands and start thinking like, you know what this movie really reminds me of?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's that, and then I owe you an apology, because when we did our song game at the end of that episode, when the final one came up for Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the theme from the Dickies, you asked me if this was the ending credit music, and I said no. And that's because whenever I hear it, I always envision the opening credits where it comes in, but it's the opening and credits, so technically I lied to you. And so I just want to tell you, I'm sorry.
I forgive you. Let's get into the movie this week. So we watched Dawn of the Dead 2004. It is a remake of Dawn of the Dead 1978. George Romero is attached to this movie, but it was written by James Gunn, I think was one of the primary writers, as well as Romero, and it was directed by one Zachary Snyder. So I just, I want to hear what you think of this movie first, because I know that you really like this movie, and I want you to sell me on this before I make a judgment call.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of the opposite, because when we were just doing our sound check for this episode before recording, you said, oh yeah, we're talking about 2004, not the good one. So immediately that kind of put me in a mood where I was very interested. That kind of got my eyebrows up a little bit. So yeah, I really like this movie. I think it's one where I was very lukewarm on it in the past. It's one where like every time I've rewatched it, I like it more and more. Many years ago, I would have had this. I think I did have it as like a 5 or a 6, which is where I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are just kind of lukewarm on it. They're kind of like, oh yeah, this is a fine enough zombie action movie. And that's where I was for a long time. And then in subsequent watches, I'm like, I think this sequence is done really well. I really like this shot, or I really like these performances. And I'm just seeing, I think the comedy is pretty good in this. James Gunn just tends to be really good at that, writing more, just combining almost more serious, gory movies, also with just not necessarily Joss Whedon-esque, but just good light relief, levity, and humor. And I think he nails it in this one, just like he kind of does in Guardians of the Galaxy and things of that nature. Obviously, very different types of movies, of course, but you have that going for it. Again, really good ensemble cast. I think Zack Snyder's direction is actually really strong. I think it's his best movie because he's kind of a meme. Because obviously, after this, he made, like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and all these movies that aren't particularly
He made
good.
300 after this. Put some respect on that movie.
I mean, 300 is at least like fun action. So, I mean, sure. But
100%.
yeah, I think this movie is great. I think it balances action, comedy, and true horror really well. This is one where I watched this when I was a kid, and so maybe it's some nostalgia creeping in, but I can remember watching this when I was like 9 or 10, as well as the original Dawn of the Dead. And both of them, especially this one, just terrifying the hell out of me. And even at 29, this movie is still scary to me at times. Like the opening and end credits are still truly effective to me. I think a lot of the set pieces, like the sewer when CJ is like dragging Tucker through the sewer, like a lot of moments like that are just really effective, very tense. Like it's a truly frightening movie to me. When you think about zombie apocalypses and the portrayal of them, this is one where I'm like, I could not survive. Like it's a really terrifying situation because when we all watch horror movies, we all put ourselves in, we kind of self-insert and we think, oh, what would I do if I was in this situation? How would I try to survive this? This is one where you're just not really surviving, I don't think.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I'll say I did really like the end credits. I think this is only my second or third watching of this movie, so maybe I'll like it more. I feel like I didn't like it more though than my original liking of it, because I remember enjoying it the first time I watched it, and that was kind of my only vibes that I kind of held on to with this movie was, I enjoyed it. It was fun, but watching it again, there's just I'll talk about the good things first. I agree with you that I do think Zack Snyder did really well in this. I think this is really well directed by him. I think the writing in a lot of places is really good. I think that plots that it introduces that are like brand new to this from the original are really good. But I just think that this movie is so painfully average through a lot of it that it really does kind of, I was never scared. I wasn't drawn in or worried as often. I'm gonna say I don't remember the end credits, and this movie's 20 years old, so we'll do lights. We'll hold off on spoilers, but like, come on. The end credits, I will say, caught me off guard. I don't remember them at all from the first time that I'd seen them, so I was pleasantly surprised by those. I did like the opening credits. I think Ving Rhames is incredible in this. And I thought Mekhi Phifer as Andre was also really good in this.
Same.
But everyone else was so kind of just toeing the line of what their characters were supposed to be for me, that I couldn't really get invested in too many of the characters. I really felt for Kenneth, for Ving Rhames. I really, really love the back and forth with the gun shop owner on the roof.
Yes.
I think that's awesome. I think that as a like subplot to drop in this movie to make it not just feel like a one for one remake, really good. That being said, I did watch parts of the original before we talked about this. I know you've watched the entirety of the original, I think,
I did.
before this. I think the original is just head and shoulders above this, and it's not close.
Well,
And that just, I think, just tainted my experience with this of having to compare them. This should have just been its own movie, I think.
well, my problem is that this is always going to be the issue when you make a remake, is that you're never going to escape the shadow of the original, and it's always going to be brought up in context of a comparison to the original. But even though this is the same in name, it's the same in its general premise, to me, they're just so different. Like, this movie is definitely trying to be more relentless and terrifying, even though, again, it still maintains a bit of a light mood with a lot of well placed levity in the script by James Gunn. But Dawn of the Dead 1978 is so much more of like a kind of goofy romp around horror comedy. And so it's still, in terms of their tone and just the way they play out, I don't feel like they're even really that comparable. Again, even though it's a remake of the same movie, it sounds odd to say, but I just don't feel like they're really that similar outside of a couple of the characteristics. And so I don't feel right comparing them. And again, I just watched the 78 one like earlier. I mean, it's very fresh in my memory. But no, I don't think this is just average at all. And again, I know I'm probably in the minority. I think I definitely do like this a lot more than most people. But yeah, I do think Mekhi Phifer was great in this. When I hear people talk about the performances, I hear a lot about Sarah Polley, Ving Rhames, but I think his portrayal of Andre is the kind of loner, just stressed out character, kind of brooding type of personality. I really liked that edge he gave to the performance. I like the scene a lot when he's talking to Kenneth, Ving Rhames' character, in the restroom after they get to the mall. And a lot of the characters have very simplistic things going on in terms of their inner conflict, but I still found them all to be very enjoyable to watch and things that really kept me around. You still, of course, have characters that are there just to pad the body count because, I mean, it is a zombie movie. You're always going to have that kind of thing. But things going on with Michael, with Anna, with Andre, I like the kind of character developments that Kenneth and CJ in particular had throughout the movie, where they kind of ended up from where they started. I really enjoyed them a lot in this movie. And again, the performances, I don't particularly agree, but just Ving Rhames being good. I think Sarah Polley was great. I really like Jake Weber, the kind of stoic character, the very straightforward persona that he goes with.
Did he play Michael?
They feel, yeah, he was Michael. And it's one where, again, also Ty Burrell, he was hilarious as Steve. I think he was great.
Yeah,
a lot of really great moments with him. And so, yeah, it's one where, like I said, with the Borderlands, a lot of the characters feel very distinct from one another, and it makes it way more enjoyable to watch. And even like Tucker, I kind of liked, even though he's one of those characters that kind of pad the body count. But just the performance by Boyd Banks, I thought just made him very likable. And so, yeah, I think this is pretty great. We'll get more into it, I think, unless you had some more non-spoiler stuff to say. I don't want to cut you off or anything.
Yeah, I'll say I thought the gore was really good in this. I thought that the kind of makeup effects were very well done. Obviously, it's a little too early for all of it to be digital, so it's almost exclusively practical effects in this movie, and that holds up really well. Where there were digital effects, it doesn't hold up at all. And I think that's maybe something to talk about in spoilers a bit more, because there's like two scenes that I think about where I'm like, oh, that's a PS2 cutscene. But yeah, I think you're right that I'm maybe underselling the rest of the cast. I think Ving Rhames and I've already forgotten his name. The guy who plays Andre, were both excellent. I think everyone else is just kind of at a level of just being good, and that's not anything against them. Mekhi Phifer, that's his name. That's not against the rest of the cast. I don't think anyone is really bad in this movie. They're just kind of all towing the same line of being good. I will give you credit. Ty Burrell is very good in this at just being a scumbag. Which I will say, as a role, probably not the hardest to nail. He's not a super complex character, but he does it well, and he's clearly having fun, which counts for something. And then before we go in, I love to talk. There's some good trivia around this movie. My favorite piece of trivia in this is everything about Ving Rhames is just he's a badass and he's so cool. So Ving Rhames heard that this movie was being made really early on in production, and he tracked down George Romero and the other producers of this movie and said, "I'm being in this movie," and made them put him in. And there's a scene in this where he's getting stitches, and for a lot of those close-up shots, it's an actual nurse giving him stitches, and they did genuinely puncture his skin in one of the shots, and he just did not react or tell her until she was done suturing him so that they could get the shot, which is badass as hell.
Yeah,
so
I like that kind of thing.
Hell yeah for Ving Rhames. He's just a badass. Yeah, I don't know. I think we can jump right into spoilers. Again, this movie's 20 years old, so
yeah,
come on.
And then it's also, again, it's a remake. Even though it does end differently, it goes in a different direction in the third act. But also on the subject of Ving Rhames, it does feel like watching the 78 movie again, his character does feel at least sort of inspired by Peter, Ken Foree's character, who is great. I just, again, rewatched it. I love his character in that movie. I love the performance by Ken. Really great. His character's just so damn cool in that, like, same thing, the kind of stoic character that he does really well. And then, yeah, you mentioned the makeup effects. They're really fantastic in this, I think. They gave a very concerned effort in trying to make them look more decomposed throughout the movie, which I love. And yeah, it's all practical. A lot of those makeup effects, they were done by David Leroy Anderson, and also had help with Heather Fringen Langenkamp, Nancy Thompson herself from Nightmare on Elm Street, because yeah, she got into makeup effects after a lot of acting. So I guess another little bit of trivia for you. But yeah, so going into our normal rating system, to me, this is like, we're getting the gory goods. We're getting all of them. Yeah, I love this.
I'm gonna say it would truly be too harsh of me to say that this was an off-screen death. So I'm gonna have to say, I have to make a decision if we got the gory goods or if it was an off-screen death. I think we got the gory goods. I think it'd be too harsh of me to say we didn't, because I do think that this movie is better than bad. It's on. If we have to make a coin flip, it's coming up in the affirmative. So I'm gonna say we did get the gory goods, even though I do think that parts of this movie aren't great, and I do have problems with parts of it, and I don't think that the whole is necessarily as good as the sum of its parts at times. I do think it's not a bad movie. It's very competently made. It's well acted. So yeah, we got the gory goods.
Yeah, I will say it's a little bit in the Train to Busan camp, where I do think of it as a zombie movie that's just very well executed. Not necessarily, a Night of the Living Dead or a 28 Days Later, where like it just really completely brought new innovation to the game in so many ways. It's just a zombie movie, but very good in my opinion. And so yeah, definitely gory goods, because not only do we actually quite literally get the gory goods in this movie, a lot of good effects.
Oh yeah.
But also, I want to say you had a very hard time deciding, and I want to remind you that you were the one who came up with it being a binary box and not having an in-between.
I stand by that. We should have to make a decision.
I respect it. So yeah, at the beginning of this movie, I like a lot. I guess we're now getting into spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah, beginning, I do really enjoy it. I love the kind of build-up and the foreshadowing where it's just many different kind of announcements and emergency broadcasts that Anna Sarah Polly, who's kind of the main character in this, we follow her throughout the beginning, that she just unfortunately kind of misses, like on the TV when she's at home with her husband. I really like the scene of her in the hospital where it starts, where it's her talking to a doctor, and he's saying like, oh, why did, Dr. So-and-so order a head MRI for a patient bitten on the hand? Like, I love the kind of build-up that this movie goes with when it comes to the zombie outbreak.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it does something with the kind of, you hear the news footage in the background and on the radio as she's driving home. And I think it's just like, that's such really good buildup. And it reminds me of Like Shaun of the Dead came out the same year as this movie, and it does something very similar, but in a like more comedic light. That I think both movies do that really well, of just setting it up in the background, letting you draw the inferences, but not just being like. I think it's very difficult to have exposition in the form of the news to the audience without making it just feel like exposition. And I think there's two roads you can go down in that. I think you can do something like what this movie does, where it's kind of, it's there in the background, and you'll hear it and pick up on it if you are paying attention, but you don't have to see it. You don't need it. Or you can do like the Last of Us TV show did, which I really love the way that they did it, where they do like throughout the first couple episodes, they do like a series of interviews, like news interviews and documentary style interviews and stuff like that. And they're harrowing. They're off, like they're truly awful in the best way. And I think if you're not hitting one of those two kind of extremes, it can just be really kind of rough to handle. And I think they handled it really well in this movie.
Definitely. They understand that the viewer, the audience member, they know that the viewer is aware they're watching a zombie movie. So they can just put up an emergency broadcast screen, and the second the viewer sees it, they're like, okay, boom, zombie outbreak. And it's all about perspective. I love the way they thrust you directly into Anna's perspective, with her going home, missing the cues, missing the emergency broadcasts, and not being aware. And then I like the scene where it's like the neighbor's daughter who's just in their home, and I love the husband's reaction where he doesn't seem to be really freaked out by like this little girl just being inside of their home. But yeah, I like the
what's
way
up?
like
You're
her
covered
face
in blood.
Yeah, not even that. Just like before he sees the blood and she's kind of in the doorway, he doesn't seem to be like really taken aback by like just a child in their home.
Yeah,
that's
check
not
that man's
theirs.
hard drives. What's going on with him? He's like, oh, there's a kid in my house that I don't own. All right, interesting.
Yeah,
Cool.
but I mean, it's a great scene where
100%.
you don't see it at first. You just see kind of her silhouette, and then she steps more into the light, and then it's just a very human reaction by him. And then yeah, this big this first action set piece where he gets bitten, and then she has to kind of fight off, like lock out the little girl who's outside the bedroom, just like pounding on the door. Which I think the sound of that like really adds to the tension. Like that route is now blocked off, and then this is one where the zombie virus just. There is like a logical inconsistency, because like any zombie media, how fast or how slow it kind of transforms a person is depending on the script and what they want for the scene.
What does the plot need?
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, do we need this person? Do we need to be a sad scene where they transition over 5 hours, or do we need it to be immediate? And in this one, it's immediate. So yeah, the husband transforms into a zombie, and then she has to go to like the bathroom and barricade herself in there. There's a jump scare I don't particularly like, because it's after the scene has already kind of picked up in tempo and it's very tense, and then they do the thing where they kind of slow the scene down and make it quiet, and then he bursts through the door in kind of a Shining reference, if you want to call it that. Not sure if that was intentional, but yeah, then she escapes through the window, and I really love the shot when she gets outside of her home, and it's like that sweeping panning shot of like all the chaos outside of her home and the neighborhood, and just fires. I love how in every zombie movie, like the second it starts, for whatever reason, just everything's on fire inside the zombie movie.
Someone's gonna leave their stove unattended, and they're gonna burn their house down. They gotta fight zombies. You can't turn your stove off when you're fighting zombies.
That's very true. I forgot that.
I do love that opening scene, but it set me up for something that I think is one of my biggest gripes, one of my biggest like general gripes with this movie, and I think it does a good job of kind of warning you that it's going to happen, in that a lot of the main characters in this movie have some serious plot armor, like excruciating plot armor. She should have been bit 3 or 4 times in the first like 2 minutes of this movie.
Sure.
And that doesn't slow down later on in the movie. Like, there's an awful lot of why is Anna not a zombie 20 minutes ago in this movie. And it happens with Ving Rhames' character too. I will say I was really expecting one of the main characters to have the kind of zombie trope of like they were secretly bitten 20 minutes ago. And that does sort of happen. but not in the way of like they were fighting with people, like they were fighting the zombies and they got bit, but because there's just the fact that half the people that make it to the end of the movie make it to the end of the movie. It's incredible. Like, it's multiple acts of God in the span of this 2-hour movie of people just truly not getting bitten when they should have 45 zombie bites on them.
Well, firstly, it's like an hour 40, not quite 2 hours. I mean, I get what you're saying, but that's just because in a zombie apocalypse of this nature, you would kind of need plot armor to survive. And then what you're talking about is very interesting to me because there's parts like that in the original movie too. Like there's
Agreed.
a part where they're in the field where Steven, Flyboy, helicopter pilot, he gets tackled. There's one where they're in the department store later on in the mall and Roger gets tackled. And in both of those, they're just one-on-one wrestling around with a zombie for like 5 minutes. And it's kind of like, okay, the zombie's not even trying to bite them for whatever reason. Like they would have been bit 10 times over.
Yeah.
Or at least should have been anyway. So
Agree. I agree with that. I do have those same issues with the original Dawn of the Dead. I think where I'm more willing to let it slide in the original is that every single zombie in the original is a shambling, walking zombie. They do something that I kind of love in this movie, where as soon as the zombies become zombies, they stop. It's like the thing that would scare me the most about zombies is the idea that they don't feel pain. So, like, There's no physical limitations to what they can do beyond just what their body is capable of. They'll fucking slam themselves into a wall over and over again without feeling it to try and get at you. Stuff like that. So there's a fat lady zombie at one point in this movie where she dies, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a slow zombie. Because I don't remember this movie at all. And then she gets up, and she's just fucking sprinting through the mall.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, that's great. That's what zombies should be about. Like, she's not fat anymore. She's a zombie. She's not feeling the weight of her body. Like, she's fast and she's big and you're fucked if she catches you. And that's why in this movie, I have less forgiveness for the scenes where it's like they didn't get bit because they're fast zombies and they're ruthless and they're fucking like brutally, they don't feel it. And in the original, it's a lot more of like, these are shambling, walking zombies. And yes, I agree that there are two, maybe three scenes in that original where they absolutely should have been bitten. And I don't have a ton of forgiveness for them, but I have more forgiveness because they're these slow, awkward zombies that I just don't have for this movie.
yeah, I mean, I guess I get you, but if we're talking about like a situation where like you've already like been tackled to the ground by a zombie, it doesn't matter if they're a shambling one or like a super fast running, incredibly agile zombie at that point. But yeah, I love that about this movie. It takes a 28 Days Later fast-running, agile zombies, which, of course, for the newer age, you kind of have to do. Like, watching Dawn of the Dead again, watching that movie again as a 9-year-old scarred me. Watching it now, I'm like, man, this is really not scary at all, which doesn't mean it's bad now. It's still great, but it's one where, like, there's no tension for me watching that movie. When I'm watching, like, the bikers surrounded by, like, 20 zombies and they're just kind of laughing and, like, pieing them in the face and kicking them over, it's like, yeah, there's not much fear here, but still in this one, a lot of set pieces that still very much get me tense, like really get me in that mood. So yeah, I love that about this one. After she gets out of that, we get that, again, really great shot, and she leaves the neighborhood. That's when she meets up with Ving Rhames, Kenneth, and then they meet up with Michael and Andre. Andre has a pregnant wife, and that's when they get to the mall, which kind of leads to another set piece that I don't particularly like, and it's the one where they split up, and it's one where Michael fights off like the one zombie in the sporting goods store, and it's that whole scene, which I guess you kind of had to. You got to get some more horror specific kind of set pieces in it. I didn't really love that. That's when it just kind of felt like more average horror zombie media to me. I'm not sure how you felt about it, but it was just kind of to me.
Yeah, there's definitely parts of this movie that feel super generic zombie to me, and there's parts of the original that also feel super generic zombie. I will say that the parts that I enjoy the original more in is tone and commentary. So we've had this conversation a lot. I've come around to it. Night of the Living Dead was not intentionally an allegory for like race commentary and stuff like that. That isn't to say that it isn't one. It just wasn't what George Romero was going for. He stumbled into a banger.
Right.
with Dawn of the Dead, he did it a lot more intentionally. And
Yes.
to an extent, it's worse in that regard. Which sucks. Sorry, George. You did better when you weren't trying. But it is still there, and it is well done. It's just not the perfect allegory the way that Night is. And I think tonally, there's a lot more fun to balance it out in the original Dawn, and I think that it lands a lot more often for me than in the remake. I do think there are some good moments of levity in the remake, but it just truly doesn't feel as like spirited as the original did. And I don't know. So I think, again, I mentioned this earlier, the places where this movie really excel are subplots that didn't exist in the original one. So the gun store owner on the opposite roof is such a good
Andy.
subplot, Andy, and so tragic,
Yeah.
and such a good, like, they really let Ving Rhames, and I cannot think of the actor off the top of my head who played Andy, but I recognized him
Bruce
in the
Bone?
movie. Yes.
I had to let's pull it up. I didn't have that memorized.
They really let the two of them shine, and it's great. And like truly, I really love that subplot. And the pregnant zombie, really love that subplot. That's great.
I don't love Zombie Baby, but I like it until then.
Yes, it's really goofy after she gives birth. But the whole subplot of like she's been bitten, so he's gonna hide her away and still have the baby is really interesting. It's a commentary on like how men in like that kind of relationship view women, and especially it's a great like it's really a great character study on Andre, who views his wife as like a baby incubator more than a person. But he still clearly loves her and cares about her, and it's like such an interesting breakdown of the character and of like romance in this kind of fucked up zombie world. But man, the rest of the movie does feel like a by the numbers zombie action movie. Have we talked about how this movie ends?
No, not yet. I do want to
Okay.
say that I don't really agree with the character analysis of Andre. Like when you see him talk to his wife before she gets bit and everything, he's like pretty tender toward her. Like when they're talking about the name for their kid, like he does seem very respectful toward her, and I liked his character a lot. Where it came off as like he's a guy who's done like some fucked up things in the past, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna be a father. I'm gonna like really get my shit together and I'm gonna like be a decent person. And then unfortunately, right when he makes that decision and is really on that path to, I don't know if you want to call it recovery, but just on that path to like redemption, then the outbreak kicks out and then it's the end of the world and he's kind of deprived of that chance. I like that. And again, the kind of tragic portrayal by Mekhi Phifer. Again, I really liked everything with his character. I thought he was, in terms of the performance and the character writing, was like an unsung hero to me. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I should clarify. I do think he really does love her and care about her, and like clearly he wants to grow and change for her. But then as soon as she's bitten, he's like, okay, I'm tying you to this hospital bed, and you're still gonna have this baby. And for me, that's such an interesting dynamic of like, clearly he loves and cares about her, and he thinks that what he is doing is like the right thing, and he thinks that he's justified in keeping her alive this long, and like essentially while she's still not a zombie, he's essentially torturing her by, and not on purpose. I want to say, because I do think I think his reasoning is noble, but he is essentially just torturing her by keeping her alive so that she can have this baby when he knows she's going to die and turn into a zombie. And that's just a really interesting dynamic there of like, clearly he loves and cares about her, but he is making the decision that is not the best in the best interest for her.
I get it. There's kind of a psychology to it. It's one of those kind of fucked up decisions. So I agree, but it's also one where I get the psychology of it, where like she's already bitten. You really can't do anything for her. And so it's like, okay, maybe I can save the baby. I feel like it's a very like Pilgrim-esque Oregon Trail type of
So
conflict going on,
you
but
could,
that's
I
kind of how
mean,
it comes
here's the
off.
thing: you could put a bullet in her head. She's not like even if you have that baby, what's the best possible outcome? It survives and you have no one to feed it, and it dies of malnourishment 2 weeks in.
No, but I really liked all of that. I mean, we're
Yeah,
getting
it's a
like
great
really
subplot.
super deep into it now. But yeah, it's a good subplot. And that's one of those examples where the characters may be at one note, but it still is interesting to me. And yeah,
Agreed.
after they get there, we start dealing with that situation. They meet the security guards who were there. CJ, played by Michael Kelly. We hadn't mentioned his name yet, so there it is. He's the chief there. He's the main guy, like the head security guard, and he's like a total asshole. He's the usual guy that you see in zombie movies. Who's very selfish, would immediately sacrifice anyone and everyone for his own survival. There's Bart, who's like the idiot second in command guy, like the kind of henchman for CJ, and he's a total moron. And you have Terry, who seems like a decent guy, who becomes like way more of a main character. And I like a lot of the dialogue after they meet those characters that get up into the security room. Like even when it's just Terry talking to Bart, and it's kind of a comedic scene where Bart's like, "Oh yeah, there was like this fat chick at Dairy Queen, man. Like I was like gonna fuck her," and like
I'd be fucking
Terry
her
just kind
tonight.
of, yeah. And it's still the one that kind of hits me emotionally a little bit when Terry's like, dude, like literally everybody you know is fucking dead. Like it's one, like I love the way it switches the tone kind of so quickly. There are some more emotional beats in this movie that do still kind of hit me. And even though it comes after such a comedic moment and line from Bart, like I do like that kind of bringing things back down to reality moment from Terry.
Yeah, there are some really good emotional beats in this movie. When oh, I've forgotten his name already. I really should just keep the IMDb page open. When the gun store owner dies, that's
Andy.
Andy. That's a great emotional beat when Ving Rhames hears on the walkie-talkie that he's been bitten, and you can see him kind of struggling with like what should I tell him over the walkie-talkie? Like he's dead. He's gonna be gone by the time you get there. What do you tell him? Like what's the move here? Because they've become friends, and now he's lost his friend after this whole time that they've been at this mall. And when more survivors show up in a truck, and Ving Rhames, I think most of the emotional beats in this movie are Ving Rhames. Weirdly enough, when Ving Rhames learns that his brother's probably dead at
Yeah,
the
great moment.
at the survivor camp, like, and he's like, I'm gonna go anyway. I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna know for certain. And they have to stop him. And I'm like, that's a really good emotional beat. And I think with like, if that had been any other character in this, like performing that part of the movie, I probably would have been less sold on it. Or like if any other character, I'm pretty sure it's Ving Rhames who kills the dad who comes in with them and who gets bitten.
Yes, I was just about to talk about that
Yeah,
scene when it comes
that's
to
a
the emotional
great
beats.
emotional beat. And if it had been
Love it.
any other character who'd been doing it except for Ving Rhames as Kenneth, I'd have been like, really? Are you sure? I don't think I would have bought into it as much. But Ving Rhames, he's acting his fucking ass off in this movie. Like, really super well done.
Yeah, I loved all of that. So yeah, they rescue. There's a semi truck that plows through the gates. I love the reveal of that too, where it's just Harry kind of looking at the security monitor, something is going on, and like that very loud musical jump when he just looks at one of the monitors and sees a semi truck plowing through one of the gates surrounding the parking lot of the mall. And they rescue a large group of people, and this is where we meet a lot of our red shirt characters who are there to just pad the body count. But among the group, there is a man named Frank, and he has a daughter, Nicole. And when they get everybody inside, Frank has been bitten. He's not looking too great. Nicole is fine, but it's one of those situations where I think he pointedly says, like, I'm all she's got. Like, it really, this movie does a great job, even though it's not showing you everything outside of the characters' perspectives. Like, it gives you a good glimpse into just like the chaos and just how many people are dying and already just how few people are left, where they're talking about like their family are gone. And again, even though you don't know the characters, it's still, for me, anytime I watch it, like it hits me emotionally in that, where you understand that like, she lost her mom. It gives you a lot of imagination for what their life was like in terms of, like, she lost her mom, maybe other siblings. They went to this church and it was a bloodbath, and like just trying to imagine and picture everything they went through to get there, and then realizing she's going to lose her dad too. Even though you don't know the characters, even though they're total red shirts by this point, it's still really emotionally effective, for me at least. I'm sure some others would not agree. They didn't have that experience, and that's fine. But yeah, for me, it does really hit me. Maybe it's also just because of the music. They play very sad, sappy music at that point. But yeah, I loved the performances there. Like, Nicole seems just truly devastated. She runs off. Like, Frank, the father, like, he knows he's done for. Ving Rhames is the one who, of course, executes him when he comes back, kind of like Peter executing Roger when he comes back as a zombie in the 1978 original. And I even loved the line of dialogue when, like, he's dying and he's saying, like, you can tell, like, he's really just not ready to die. Like, he says, you always want it, like, you want to get every last second, like, trying to really milk just his life as long as he possibly can, which, like, I'd be the same way.
There's a line in that scene where he's waiting, like, the dad is still he's still a person, and Ving Rhames has the gun pointed at him, and he's just not pulling the trigger, and the dad asks him, he's like, you're gonna let me have every minute, right, aren't you? Like, he's like, aren't you? Like, you're gonna wait until I've changed. So, and Ving Rhames, like, just nods at him, and I'm like, that's a really good character interaction of this guy who clearly doesn't want to die but knows it's for the best, and Ving Rhames who doesn't want to murder a human being.
Yeah,
it's like they're
just
so
very
clearly
human.
Yeah, it's so human. It's super well done by the two of them.
Yeah, and that's how I would describe a lot of things in this movie, actually. Even if it's not, again, extremely, like, the characters aren't extremely well rounded in a lot of different ways. A lot of things in terms of their decision making and just how things go, the choices they make, it all just feels very human in many ways and through a lot of different moments in the movie. And so that's definitely one of them. And then, yeah, I love the change of tone after that to where it doesn't get too dour, because immediately after he kills Frank, we're also forgetting the entire dilemma between Michael and Anna at that point. Like, I love when Michael, again, is trying to be the stoic, kind of stalwart hero almost. Like, when he realizes Frank is dead, he's like, okay, well, we need to go fucking shoot him. And he immediately grabs a handgun. I love the kind of clash between him and Anna when she's stopping him. And I love, again, the dialogue where she's like, yeah, just fucking shoot him. Like, when he sees that Frank and Nicole are, like, all they have left, and, like, they're just sitting there crying. And of course he can't bring himself to do it, because, yeah, of course he'd have to be a monster to do it. And then it's like, yeah, shoot him, Michael. Hey, shoot Tucker too. Like, just like, I love the dialogue. I love her performance in that. Like, how kind of snarky she gets.
There's some really good humorous line deliveries in here where you can tell that James Gunn is trying to find the levity of the original movie. There's the scene where they're running from the zombies and they get in the elevator and CJ's like, oh, I like this song. And I'm like, yeah, that's like a great little break in the tension. Or when they're shooting celebrity lookalikes with Andy across in the gun
That's
store.
a great scene.
That's a great scene.
Very early 2000s. There's like a Rosie O'Donnell reference. That's a very early 2000s kind of reference. Like, nobody would really say that or mention or, like, make Rosie O'Donnell as, like, a joke now in 2024, but that was such, like, a late 90s, early 2000s thing. And I love the dialogue again where he's like, oh yeah, I got Rosie O'Donnell, tell him to get Rosie. And it goes to Kenneth, he's like, no, that's too easy, give him a hard one. Or sorry, I think it was Tucker who said that. Like, I love that. Again, little line deliveries and little bits of dialogue like that.
There's the scene as well where who is it? Someone's on the roof of the gun shop. It's not Andy anymore. It's later on in the movie where they're trying to shoot a propane tank. And they're out. I think the two of them are outside, or three or four. It's after they've gone to rescue Nicole. A bunch of them are outside, and they're like, and Nicole's like, "How do we know when he hits the propane tank and then it blows up?" And I'm like, that's good. That's a good little tension. Like, there's really good little tension relief in this movie when things are really starting to ramp up. Like, it's clearly meant to be a fun action zombie movie as much as it's just like a horror zombie movie, which it's a good tone to ride for this kind of movie.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying when we began talking about it in the non-spoiler section. It, to me, always does feel relentless in that way, in the action. Like it is very, very tense to me, almost in a way of like Wreck or The Descent. But unlike Wreck and The Descent, this movie's a lot more fun. It has those moments of levity, and it never feels like it's really, really taking itself extremely seriously. Yet it still manages to have the tension, to me, in my experience, just like those more like oppressive viewing experiences like Wreck or The Descent, which to me again is so impressive. That's a big part of the reason why I love this so much. I think it's an extremely difficult thing to pull off, and I think they just did it so well.
Yeah, I think I can agree with. I think the tone balancing is good in a lot of places. There are some bits where it's just not as well balanced for me. I think the fact that they couldn't fit in any sort of like fun clearing out the mall section for me kind of does bring it down. Um, but then again, you know, if they're not trying to be the original, they're trying to make their own movie. Good for them. Like that's if that's what they wanted to take out to fit in the two other subplots they put in, go for it. That's totally fine. We should talk about how this movie ends. So they get some buses, like almost like school buses,
Like
and
shuttles, they're like mall shuttle
yeah,
buses.
like mall shuttles, and they turn them into murder buses, and they're gonna drive them to the dock and get on a boat and go to an island. And surprise, surprise, that doesn't go super well. None of the plans they make really go great in this movie. But there is a scene when they're on the bus where they throw a propane tank that they've lit on fire and they shoot it and it blows up. And it was the scene where I was just completely taken out of it because all of the zombies fall over, and they fall over in like a wave, and they just fall kind of flat, and it is a PS2 cutscene. Like it's not, no real actors were involved in that at all. The CGI is bad. It's purely a cutscene from like a PS2 zombie video game. And that just completely took it out of me. Or it completely took me out of it. But I will say, after they started the drive again, very exciting last 5 minutes of this movie. I thought the end of this movie was very fun.
Yeah, and you're saying about the effects. Did you notice how, because I certainly didn't, the scenes where they're on the rooftop and there's just like thousands of zombies accumulated in the parking lot? That was done through effects because they didn't have that many extras, so they just.
I did, yes.
I think it's done very well. Are you saying that you knew that fact about the movie?
I noticed it, but I did think it was done way better than the later scenes with the like the explosion, everything moving. But it is very clearly just cut and pasted lots of different things of the same zombies. Like that's what it looked like to me, because you could tell how different it was when they were aiming the sniper rifle to shoot like Rosie O'Donnell and the celebrity lookalikes compared to when they were pulling back out in the same scenes to look at the crowd. Like I was like, oh, it's not the same thing. And that's what really kind of tipped me off, is that they were so different when they were looking in through the scope of the sniper rifle versus when they were pulled out.
Yeah, I guess, but it's not a thing that took me out of it because that first scene that you're talking about with the sniper is more early on where there's not as many, so it makes sense why they're more kind of spaced out compared to that scene later on when it's Kenneth with the whiteboard talking to Andy when they're communicating that way. Like it made sense to me to look more packed in that way because there's just more bodies. So it didn't take me out of it. I didn't really notice that it was like an effect where they just had like several different shots of extras against the green screen that they didn't basically kind of multiplied or put together. They shot them in different areas of the parking lot and then just kind of put it together almost like a composite shot. And I think that was pretty clever. I think that was really creative. And I always love learning stuff about that when it comes to effects and movie making and how you kind of get around different shortcomings. Like, oh, we want to have this thing, but we don't have like 2,000 extras. Okay, what can we do when we have like 200 extras? But yeah, the whole scene that toward the end that you're describing with like the fireball from the propane tank, it's a very goofy scene anyway, with like how CJ throws it out and it's caught
Yeah.
by like this one zombie that's just like fucking massive. That's like a power lifter. It's like Mr. Olympia or whatever. He looks like he's about to throw it back, even though we haven't really seen more human like thought or characteristics from the zombies. It's another one of those kind of logical inconsistencies for me. It's very goofy, but yeah, it's not a thing that like I really hate about it. It's just kind of like, not my favorite thing.
Yeah, I'll say one thing that I think the original does way better than this movie, and that I and was something that I just didn't like as much in this movie is none of the zombies have a ton of personality.
Sure.
The closest to a personality on any of the zombies that I can think of is the fat zombie being fast. And that kind of sucks because the original one has some just like super fun zombies, like Gun Zombie, the guy who takes the guns and just keeps and he trades the gun at the end. Like that's super
Oh
funny.
yeah, I love Gun Zombie. He's got so much personality.
Yeah, but like the zombies in the original are so much more like, this is a weird turn of phrase, I recognize talking about zombies, but they're so much more alive
Yeah.
than in this movie, where they really do just feel like I think it's a little maybe insulting to say that this movie is like paint by numbers with the zombies and the zombie kind of storyline, but like the zombies in this movie feel pretty paint by numbers. They feel super like this is just what a zombie is, and you're gonna face a lot of the same thing over and over again, and that's kind of boring for a zombie movie.
Yeah,
And that was one of the things that I truly really appreciate the original a lot more in how kind of animated and how much of a character each of the zombies feels like.
yeah, but I think that again goes into the difference in tone. Like it works more in the Romero because it's more of a forward comedy. This one, where it's trying to be more relentless, it wouldn't have the same effect if like you see a couple of zombies rushing toward Ving Rhames, and one of them is like a tennis player, and one of them is like a woman in a slutty nurse outfit because she was at a Halloween party, and it's like these different types of kind of costumes that they go with for the ones in the Romero movies. Again, I love it. I love how it's like, oh, that one's like a football player, and oh, this one's in a military uniform, and it's like, yeah, it's very interesting and it's fun, but I just don't feel like it would have the same effect here. I think it would actually hurt this movie if they tried to implement that same thing.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think for me, a part of that is just that's comes down to how the movie's made. And if the movie is made in such a way where it's you can't afford to have any sort of personality with the zombies, then maybe something about how it's made, is wrong. So I don't know. For me, that was just a takeaway of I vastly prefer the original in that regard, especially where the zombies feel like they have kind of characteristics and personality, even when they are just shambling undead. But yeah, so anyway, they get to the end of the movie. They have to all get onto one bus. One of them has a horrific chainsaw accident, which is super fun. And they get to the dock. They escape to the island. Credits roll. And that's the end of the movie. Or so I thought. But there's a post-credit scenes in this movie that I wasn't ready for.
Are you talking about the scene where they get to the island and then they get on the boat and
Yes.
leave? Yeah, I love that. I love that ending, and it's really scary to me. Like, I love how they get to the island. I firstly love how it goes into the post, well, not the post credit, but the credits with like "Down with the Sickness." I think that was actually a really good music choice. All the
Great.
music choices from Zack Snyder are great in this movie.
I don't think they were Zack Snyder's choice. I don't think all of them were Zack Snyder's choices.
Maybe not, but he's normally really big on that. Typically, if you hear
Yeah.
music, especially if it's like already pre-written music that's taken and then put into the movie, that's normally directly from Zack Snyder. Like his needle drops in that way are like very distinct, and they're not always good. They're not always great choices. They kind of get memed. That's one of those things about Zack Snyder people kind of make fun of. But typically, that's like his creative input when it comes to an already written song that he's like, oh, this would work really well in this scene. Oh, I can use this song for this kind of montage or whatever. Like the kind of parody version of Down with the Sickness and the hedonism montage that is like a nod to the 1978 original. Because you got to have that if you're going to do the same premise and they're in the mall. You got to have like the kind of fun hedonism montage, which they do. I think they also do it really well in this movie. This movie just in general has like the right amount of fan service for me with that. There's a Ken Foree cameo we haven't talked about yet, where he gives the classic "When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth" line as he's talking on the TV as a pastor. This movie is the right amount, which is to say, very little. I always hate remakes that feel the need to just like overwhelm the audience member and just like constant references, like for example Halloween 2018, where it's just like, dude, just be your own movie, please. Like, just be your own thing.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, sorry, I realized I went a little bit off topic from what you were saying with the ending. Yeah, I love the ending. I love when they get to the island and the music cuts off. It automatically creates a little bit more of a tense atmosphere. The way Chips the dog runs off into the woods, like, I love that. Like, that also just kind of makes things like more spooky, kind of. Mm-hmm. And then the camera zooms in as like all the zombies run out. Like, I love that ending. I think it's great. And then they get back into the boat. They drop the camera, which again is very realistic if you're doing a found footage kind of thing. We talked about that in the last episode. And in this one, they do actually just drop the camera and get out of there. I think it's Terry is the one holding it.
I will say I had a different reading of the end of this movie.
Sure.
Or the post credits. I didn't think they got out.
I think it's supposed to be. That's how I always viewed it myself. I always viewed it as, oh, they died. Like, they got overwhelmed and died. And it is ambiguous. I don't think it's one where it's like, yeah, I think I've just read like online that they did, that it's, they get back to the boat and then it's ambiguous. I guess they got out of there and then likely maybe died of thirst in the ocean. But it is ambiguous. You could say they got overwhelmed trying to get back on the boat. You could argue that they did get out of there. And I love just the way it cuts. I love when it cuts with just a zombie falling right in front of the dropped camera, and you don't really even hear the boat or anything else after that. It immediately just cuts to the end credits. And I love how in both the beginning and end credits, it's intercut with zombies kind of like screaming in between the music and the title card and all of the cast and crew popping up in the credits. I thought that was really good. That kind of added to the tone a lot for me. And then lastly, on that note, I do really like the sound design for the zombies. I don't typically love really, really inhuman, kind of almost demonic sounds when it comes to zombies, but I really like it in this one. I think it's done really well, and I think it adds to them being truly terrifying.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well done. Yeah, I think the audio for the zombies is really done. I think especially at the post credits, it's really well done, where a lot of it is you're hearing them coming before they arrive. I think that's really great. I thought they died. Not gonna lie. My takeaway from the end of this movie was they get there and there's zombies there too, and it's hopeless, and they have a final stand and die. And for me, I thought that made for really good kind of end credits. I think it's a little bit of what's a very kind way to put this? I think it's a coward's move to hide that ending in the end credits. Don't give people two endings. Don't let them have a happy ending if they can't deal with a sad zombie ending. It's a zombie movie. Let them all die and live with that decision, or don't make it at all. But I did think it was really good. So there you go. Take the duality of man. Don't be a coward. Put that in the movie proper, but also really well done.
Yeah, I don't think it's cowardice. I think it's a great ending. I love the ambiguity of it. I love that you can kind of try to determine if they made it out or not. We didn't talk about the scene with Michael getting bit. So after they kind of clear their way through the city, I love the way they reveal it too. They don't treat you like you're an idiot. So basically, one of the shuttles flips over. Prentice mentioned the chainsaw death in the inside, which is great. It just leaves it a total bloody mess. Steve, I believe, was the character's name. That was the one that was Ty Burrell. He's the boat owner. They're trying to get to his boat, go to an island. He runs out kind of selfishly, and like you would expect in a zombie movie, the character who behaves like that gets killed. And Anna, and this is like a setup and a payoff, it's foreshadowed, she's the one who puts him down. There's a scene on the roof way earlier where he's kind of joking around. It's the scene where they're getting Andy to shoot the zombies that are celebrity lookalikes in the more funny scene. And he's like, hey, if I'm ever like that, you got my permission, like blow my fucking head off. And she, of course, doesn't like him because nobody likes him. And he's like, oh, she's like, oh yeah, you can count on that. And that, of course, does happen after he turns. And she realizes, I love this moment too, where of course she's the one who realizes he has the boat key, and she runs back to grab it and like just makes it back into the shuttle just in time. And that one I love. Slight tangent, I really love the usage of POV shots that Zack Snyder goes with. Like in that one where she gets into the shuttle, it cuts to her perspective where she's just surrounded by zombies as like they're pulling her into the shuttle to get away. There's another really good one like in the bathroom kind of fight in the first one, and then when Tucker is being dragged in the sewer by CJ, they go to rescue Nicole. They use the manhole to get in and out. He accidentally falls in and like breaks his ankle. And as he's being dragged, and CJ gives him two handguns to shoot them off, which also feels like a reference to the '78 original after Roger gets bit and Peter's wheeling him around on like the wheelbarrow. And there, it cuts to his POV where like there's just like, this big fucking like yoked up zombified dude who kind of like rounds the corner and is running at him. Like I really love the POV shots to make things even more effective and more scary. But yeah, it leads to Michael being bitten, and it's just a scene where after he pulls her inside, he just kind of looks down at his arm, and it doesn't show you his arm. You're just seeing his face, and then he just kind of looks back up, and he's just kind of like, fuck, man. Like, I just love the way they don't treat you like you're an idiot, and it's just him looking down and then back up in the same shot and revealing that he's a goner.
Yeah, I think it's really well done. Like I said, I think the last 10 minutes of this movie, after the propane explosion, which is goofy as hell, I think the movie is really well done up until the end. Good callbacks, like you said, with her shooting Steve in the head, and waiting to get the keys, setting up that Michael is going to get bit because he's clearly going to save Anna because they're in love.
Yeah.
And then just all the way up till the post credits. Just really well done. But yeah, I think the last 10 minutes and the two subplots that I really like in the middle of this movie are better than the whole of the movie, which is just where it kind of falls apart for me. So for me, yeah, I think this is a good 6.5 out of 10. A lot of fun. If you want a fun action-y zombie movie that still has some punch to it, pretty good choice.
Yeah, that's one we didn't really mention was the kind of romance and character development of Michael and Anna. You learn more about them, and they kind of have a bit of a romance going in. Like Prentice said, they kind of fall in love. That's one of the things we didn't mention, but I really liked that dynamic as well, and I really liked their chemistry throughout the movie. But no, I think this is great start to finish. And when we're talking about the propane tank scene, it is goofy, but it doesn't feel entirely unearned, because like what you would want in kind of a big action movie, there is a clear, steady progression in the scale of action and the spectacle, which I love. Like the very first one, it's very small scale. It's just her fighting off her husband in her bedroom in the bathroom. And then it steadily grows in scale to where it's them throwing a fucking propane tank into a giant horde of zombies and blowing up like seemingly half the city. Like, yeah, it is goofy, but with the movie's kind of more comedic tone, at least at times, it doesn't feel entirely out of place, and it does feel at least kind of earned with the build-up. But yeah, for me, this is like a 9 out of 10. I really love this for what it is. I think it's one of the best zombie movies, just point blank period. I don't know if I would say I love it like more than the original, because again, they're just so different to me. I feel like I'm rating them as different things, but I think it's fantastic. Really like the characters for the most part. I love the performances. I think it succeeds in being an action movie. I think it succeeds as a horror movie. It succeeds in the comedy. And it's also just really, really entertaining. And it's not very long either. This just kind of hits every check mark that I would want in a zombie movie.
No, I think that's entirely fair. For me, it doesn't hit as hard, I think. And that's why I think a lot of it is just, there are parts of it that I think are really just kind of paint by numbers. And that, for me, just doesn't have the same punch. But there are parts of this movie that I think are truly excellent. So I get it. I truly see where you're coming from when you say that.
Yeah, and then also I think outside of probably Suspiria 2018, I think this is probably the best horror remake that I can think of.
Body Snatchers.
Oh, fair. At least in terms of modern remakes.
Oh,
I
if
kinda
you're talking
meant to
like
say.
post
Yeah, like
2000,
post 2000. Yeah, sorry, I should have been more specific.
probably. I think that's
Yeah,
probably
Body Snatchers is a
safe
great
to
one
say.
though. Yeah, that's a great pick. The '78 one with Donald
Yeah,
Sutherland. Yeah,
hell
that's a
yeah, that
great
movie
pick.
rules.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, post Y2K, this and Suspiria. You could probably throw Evil Dead in there too. Give that kind of an honorable mention. But
When did
I
Ring
think
come
this and
out?
Suspiria. When did what?
The American version of The Ring come out.
Oh, '02. Yeah, that's up there as well.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that'd be like the starting tag team. It's Dawn of the Dead, Suspiria, The Ring, and Evil Dead would be. I'm not sure what I would make a fifth one to be like the starting five, but yeah, that's a good group of remakes right there, in a land that's a fucking graveyard of shitty dog shit remakes. But yeah, I think this is great. 6.5 from Prentice, 9 from myself. I understand that I'm kind of in the minority. I'm like way bigger on this movie than a lot of people. I know most people are just kind of like, yeah, it's not bad, and like pretty good little zombie movie. Lastly, we've been going on for a bit. I lastly want to bring up the themes of consumerism and whatnot from the '78 movie. I don't particularly love when people use that as a criticism for this movie, trying to say like, oh yeah, this movie didn't, it didn't get the point of the original, and it misses on like the point of the mall and like the symbolism of that and the consumerism. Like, I don't personally necessarily care about that, because just how we view consumerism and how important it is to us as American people, it's very different from the time this movie came out from 1978. Like, shopping malls weren't even like a huge craze yet. And so I just don't think it would have made much sense to just wallow in the same themes as the '78 movie. I just don't think it would have added anything. I like that they didn't try to do that again. There's a quote from a critic that I love. They word it much better than I ever could, and like I just tried to, saying, Romero's consumerist metaphor has lost its significance in the years since the original's release, with the politics of consumption now an established academic field and shopping now considered a statement of identity. Like, yeah, it just wouldn't have hit the same way. And so I think it's a smart choice to not do it again, but I completely understand where Prentice and a lot of other people are coming from with just still liking that aspect of the '78 original more, even if it was too late to try to hit the same beats again with 2004's remake. But if you don't have anything else, I think we're good to move on to our game for this episode.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this one, admittedly a little more low effort. I had to try to put something together a little more quickly for this one. But this one is going to be Guess the Movie by Letterboxd review. I have 20 movies pulled up. I have their page on Letterboxd pulled up. I'm going to read out a kind of funny meme-esque review left on there, because that's very big on Letterboxd. If you pull up like almost any movie, all the highest rated reviews are like memes, kind of. But I try to go with ones that actually have context clues. There are some where, for example, it'll be like, oh, this happened to my friend Susan last Tuesday. Like, it's kind of funny, but that wouldn't give you anything to work with.
Yeah, that
you know
doesn't
what
tell
I mean?
me shit.
Exactly. So I try to go with ones that actually give you good context clues and that you can figure out.
I think for this game, just so that we're not spending a ton of time on each question, I'll do one guess with just the review, and then I'll ask for the year if I get it wrong, and I'll do one guess with the year. And if I'm wrong after that, you just tell me I'm wrong and we move on.
Sure, we'll keep it going at a bit of a steady pace. I'm also glad you said that. That was a thing I totally forgot about, but I wanted to bring that up as a suggestion. Like, you have to at least make one guess before I give you the year.
I can do that. Let's do it.
All right, first one. Here's the review. A bit of a downer to watch just before embarking on a trip to Antarctica with my boys tomorrow.
The Thing.
It is The Thing.
Hell yeah. That's a great review. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. I thought a lot of these were pretty good. I tried to pick some decent ones. All right, moving on to number 2. We're going to keep it rolling. The tragic story of a bunch of alcoholics who hunt down and murder a fish for the crime of being really hungry.
Creature from the Black Lagoon?
No.
Can I get a year?
Released year in 1975. I can also reread it one time if you would like.
Please do.
Okay, so release year 75, the review again. The tragic story of a bunch of alcoholics who hunt down and murder a fish for the crime of being really hungry.
Is it Jaws?
It is Jaws.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
Especially with frickin' Quint, who is just a total alcoholic in that movie. Robert Shaw. There's also a second good one that I like that it says, reminds me of Shark Tale
Oh,
2004.
I love that. That's great.
All right, number 3. I can't believe Paris Hilton invented acting in 2005.
Oh no, don't give me the year already. 2005. I'm gonna go with Hostel.
No, but that is the release year of Hostel. I'm going to read it again. Think more about the name than the release year. I can't believe Paris Hilton invented acting in 2005.
Paris Hilton.
Yes, she was in a horror movie in this year.
Oh no, I have no idea.
I do have one more hint if you want to take a guess beforehand.
Should I know what this movie is?
I think so.
Is it The Fog? Did that come out 2005?
No,
She's not in that movie, so I don't know why I'm guessing.
she's not.
I don't know what movies I don't know what movies Paris Hilton's been in. I'm
Okay,
going to say
so
I'm just
hint
wrong.
is-
You can tell me what the answer is.
Well, very quickly, I'll give one more hint. This is a remake. It is a 2005 remake, which probably doesn't help much either. This is like when all the fucking remakes were coming out.
It's not Ring.
No, that was
Was
02.
she in the American version of The Grudge?
No, that was Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I got no fucking clue.
Okay, this is House of Wax, the
Oh,
05
Jesus.
remake.
I don't know if I've seen
Yeah.
that.
She gets like stabbed all the way through the head. They gave her like a really gory death to satiate everyone because they knew
Rad.
when everybody saw her in that movie, they were like, yeah, they're going to want to see her get killed in like a really
Poor Paris
disturbing
Hilton.
way. Yeah, poor Paris Hilton having like billions of dollars
Fair enough.
in inheritance, basically. But, all right, moving on to number 4. This movie does for cloud spotting what Jaws did for swimming.
Nope.
It is Nope. Jordan
Hell
Peele's
yeah.
Nope. All right,
That's
going right
good. I
on
like
to
that.
number 5. Good thing birds aren't actually real.
Is this The Birds?
It is the birds.
Yeah. I love that. Birds are government drones.
All right, on to the next one. I'm already losing count. I'm just going to keep going.
I think we're on
Me,
6.
20 minutes in. Really? This is it? Me, 80 minutes in. Lol, yes, absolutely, please never end. Bit of a harder one, I think, maybe.
Skinamarink?
No. The release year, 2021.
2021? Oh no, so I really should get it right. Okay, let me think about movies that came out in 2021. Is it... Oh, is this a movie that I don't like but you love?
I don't love it, but I think that's enough for you to get it.
Is it Malignant?
It is Malignant.
Ah.
Yeah,
All right, fair
my
enough.
last hint was going to be that like we've talked a pretty good bit about this movie. We watched it together and we had like a pretty lengthy conversation, and we're in two pretty different camps about it.
100%. All right,
All right,
hit me with
on to the
one.
next. All right, the review. Getting the ick from your husband watching himself get executed.
What? Getting the ick from your husband watching himself get executed.
Right.
Okay, so here's the thing. I know this isn't the movie. This isn't the correct movie. Is this Sinister?
No.
Okay. I was going to say Looper
So-
as my joke answer.
No, but the release year, 2023.
What? Is this oh fuck, I think this is one I haven't seen. Is this fucking... God damn it.
I think you know it.
Oh, I think I do, but it's killing me.
I can give another hint.
It's not When Evil Lurks, is it?
It's not.
All right, give me one last hint, because I feel like I do know this.
The hint is another review on here. It says, would I go through all of this just for Mia Goth? You're goddamn right I would.
Okay, here's the thing. My brain says it's Infinity Pool, but I don't remember that movie coming out in 2023.
Do you want to lock it in?
I'm going to lock in Infinity Pool, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
It is. It is Infinity Pool. It came out very early in 23. That may be the reason why.
Okay.
It was like January or February release. And then my last thing was going to be, I really love this director.
Okay, that's there you go. All right, what's the next one?
All right, the next one, the review. I'm just like Eloise because I too am lonely and spend most of my time thinking about Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh no. Okay, I want to say this is The Vitch.
It is not The Vivitch. The release year for this movie, 2021.
Okay, my second guess is also definitely wrong, but it's Last Night in Soho.
That is definitely not wrong. It is Last Night in Soho.
Oh, okay, fair
Well
enough.
done. Yeah, and also, like, I'm lonely and spend most of my time thinking about Anya Taylor-Joy. Isn't that all of us? I mean, come on.
Real, 100%.
All right, on to the next. The review. Matilda took a dark turn.
Oh no, I have no fucking clue. It's not Mithrigan.
It's a harder one.
It's not.
No, it is not Mithrigan. Though it's not a bad guess,
I'm
honestly.
trying to
Just
talk
off the
myself.
review.
Is it perhaps Orphan?
It's not Orphan. Do you want the release year?
Yeah, give me the release year.
Release year 1976.
Oh Jesus. What horror movies came out in 1976? Carrie?
It is Carrie.
Okay.
Well done.
I couldn't think. Carrie came out in the 70s, so I was like, it's probably gonna be that year. I couldn't think of a single movie that came out in 1976 specifically.
Yeah, and then of course the review making a reference to a
Yeah.
telepathic girl, you know.
Oh, that's right. I always forget that Matilda can fucking use telepathy.
Kind of a weird movie when you think about it, huh?
Yeah, in hindsight, a weird movie to show to children.
It's
Alright,
got Danny
maybe
DeVito, so it's got that going for it.
Real, 100%.
All right, on to the next. I'm so happy I don't shave my legs.
What? Oh no. Oh man. Is it?
Some of these are definitely harder than others.
Is is it? Hey, I'm gonna make a joke guess because I have no fucking clue. Is it teeth?
It is not teeth.
All right, give me a year.
2002.
Ah, fucked if I know. It's not Ring.
No.
It's not the original The Grudge. You know what? Fuck it. I'll
No.
lock in the original The Grudge because I have no fucking clue.
It's not. I'll give one more final hint as a last-ditch effort. We recently have talked about doing an episode that is a retrospective for the early movies by this director. One of the two early movies we talked about for this director. Early 2000s.
Oh no. Oh, I have no fucking idea. Did a Halloween movie came out this year? Is it? Okay. I don't remember talking about a director recently. My brain's turned to mush. You know what? I know that a Blade movie came out that year, so I'll just say one of the Blade movies.
No, do you want to go and tap out? Move on to the
Yeah, I
next
do
one?
want to tap out.
Okay, it's Cabin Fever by Eli Roth.
Oh, yeah, we have talked about that.
Yeah, that's an episode I would like to do sometime. Is talking about Cabin Fever and Hostel and kind of revisiting those because I know Hostel we have very differing opinions on, but I don't think you've watched it for a really long time. I've watched
I
it somewhat
haven't.
recently.
I haven't seen Cabin Fever in at least 5 years as well.
Yeah, Cabin Fever I haven't watched since I was like a little kid. I was like 12 when I watched that, and I have not seen it since. Hostel's a very different story, but on to the next one, the review. It's maybe good that these guys got lost and eaten or whatever, because before stuff starts going wrong, it seems like their documentary was probably going to suck.
Blair Witch Project?
It is the Blair
All
Witch
right, that's a
Project.
good one. That's a good review.
All right, right on to the next. Ah, yes, horror in its truest form, Geometry.
Cube?
It is Cube. Nice,
Hell
good
yeah.
guess. Very well done.
That's a
There's a
great review.
second one. Yeah, there's a second one that's also really good that I couldn't give you because it'd be too obvious, but it just says, "This is why I always tell people not to get trapped in a deadly cube."
I love that. That's great.
Yeah, you can see why I couldn't make that one the review of choice, but next one. Just throw the whole damn kid away.
Oh, this could be any fucking movie.
It is more specific than you think.
Mithrigan.
Oh, do you want the release year?
Please give me the release year.
Release year 2010.
2010. Is it a movie that I really like?
I don't believe so.
Did Insidious come out in 2010?
Did.
Is it Insidious?
It is.
Okay.
It is Insidious because the next hint was going to be that just the tagline of the movie. It's not the house that's haunted.
Yeah. All right. That I would have gotten there with that.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought that'd have been a good next one.
That's fair though. Yeah. Throw that kid away.
All right, next one. The review. If the movies have taught me anything at all, it's that parents should generally be a lot more supportive of their malevolent mutant offspring.
Mutant Offspring? Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No, not a bad guess, but they're not exactly mutants in that. They're just
Yeah.
like
Is it that episode of
Homofucks.
X-Files, which is fucking horrific?
no. I've never seen an episode of X Files actually.
We should watch that episode. That's a horrific episode. Can I get a release year?
Release year 1977.
1977. Oh, fucked if I know. Suspiria is the only movie I can think of that came out that year. Okay, mutants in the 70s. Wrong Turn wasn't the 70s, was it? So it's the other.
No,
one.
that was like 2003.
Yeah, it's the one.
It's on the right track though.
Yeah, it's the other one. Not Devil's Third, not those movies. But it makes me think of those. The Hills Have Eyes.
It is The Hills Have Eyes. Well
Okay.
done.
I got there.
My other hint was going to be there is a 2006 remake of this movie, which I think is also kind of one of the better remakes.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, Alexandre Aja, however you say his name, French guy. All right, next one. If you're going into space, I think you should leave your cat at home. He doesn't need the stress.
Alien.
Yeah, it's Alien.
And they're right.
All right, on to the next immediately. Peter Parker had it easy.
The Fly?
It is The Fly. I'm really impressed you got that just off of that. I saw it and I'm like, this seems like it might be one of the really hard ones.
It was either The Fly or it was like an arachnophobia, eight-legged freaks themed one. But I figured The Fly was probably more likely.
Yeah. And on to the next one. The review. No sympathy for this family. Buy the ghost insurance next time.
Paranormal Activity.
No.
Poltergeist?
It is Poltergeist.
I figured it was one of those. Sinister was probably my next guess.
That'd be a pretty good one too. Or Amityville. Just like any kind of haunted
Yeah.
house ghost movie, I feel that could be kind of applicable for. On to the next one, the review. Definitely not the Malcolm X sequel I expected.
Is it just X?
No.
That'd be hilarious. Does it star an actor from Malcolm X, perhaps?
I have no fucking idea. I wouldn't want to lead you astray by
Is
just
it-
kind of saying
is it
no. I
Candyman?
doubt it. No.
Okay, can I get a year?
Release year 2001.
2001. 2000. Wait, what? Is it Jason X?
It is Jason X.
My goat. I should have
Next
got
one.
that so much faster.
Babe, are you okay? You've hardly touched your breadless bread plate.
The Menu.
It is The Menu. Nice.
Banger
Very
movie.
good.
Love that movie.
Yeah, very good. Next one, the review. I like how I've inconsistently been actually prefacing it by saying, like, okay, here's the review.
Yeah.
The review. I hope when my daughter hits puberty, it'll be a tad less eventful.
Oh, this could be fucking anything. This is so many movies. It's not It Follows. It's not Carrie. Is it Carrie? Let's do Carrie to start.
No, we already did Carrie. But that
say
would
we
be a
already did
very good one. Yeah, when I read this one, I'm like, this would also be very applicable to Carrie. Even more so, maybe.
I'll lock in Suspiria just 'cause I can't remember how old anyone is in that movie.
No, you're in the right decade. I'll go ahead and give you the year unless you want to make another guess.
Give me the year.
1973.
So early. Is it The Exorcist?
It is The Exorcist.
Okay. That's early 70s.
Yeah, it's 73. If you need another hint, I was going to say, like, arguably the biggest horror movie of all time that boomers insist is, like, going to be number one forever. I think I told you about back in the day when I, like, still had Twitter and I put up a thing saying, like, you know, The Exorcist is great. Like, we can't deny that, but it's kind of just boring. And I pissed off all of boomer Twitter.
Hell yeah.
All right, last one. Love how this character doesn't really do anything. He just stands in the corner and gives you cuck hallucinations until you kill yourself.
Is that... Okay, I know it's not. But I really want to say Gerald's Game.
Not Gerald's Game, but you are in the same year.
I'm in the same year? Okay, so that's 2017?
Yes. Correct.
Oh no. Is it a movie that we clown on?
Yes.
Is it The Bye Bye Man?
It is the Bye Bye
God damn
Man.
it. Are you gonna find a way to slip The Bye Bye Man into every game that we do?
By God, I'm gonna do it.
Oh no.
Also, lastly, there's another review from a person who I guess really liked it. They gave it a 4.5 star. But I skimmed the review because I recognized the name Kurosawa. And at first it was saying, like, that Stacy Title, the woman who directed this movie, God rest her, she did pass away from ALS a little bit after this movie. But this reviewer, this person on Letterboxd, said, like, the American Kiyoshi Kurosawa, and I was like, I was gonna fight. That is, like...
Incorrect.
Those are fighting words to me, comparing her, again, God rest her, but comparing her to Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who made, like, one of the best fucking movies of all time with Cure, and has made some really incredible horror. But then I read it more closely, and it said, if you're not charmed by dumbass American Kiyoshi Kurosawa, so I'm like, okay, they're not making that comparison, really. So, all right, but yeah, for a moment, that was, like, the most offensive opinion or think piece that I've ever seen in my life. I was ready to fight. But yep, that's the last one. It was the Bye Bye Man. Go and tune in next time. We are going to be talking about My Bloody Valentine, even though the next episode after this one will be up on the 21st, I believe. So we'll be out a little after Valentine's Day, but who cares? I actually have never seen it, so it's a good time to go ahead and check it off the watch list. That's been this episode of the Kill It Off Screen podcast. If you have any movies you would like us to watch and possibly review here on the show, you can email those suggestions to killitoffscreenpod@gmail.com. These episodes come out every 2 weeks, every other Wednesday, and we will see you in the next one.